And he says a lot in 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, all the good stuff happened in 3. It's like Lord of the Rings. Missed a big check.
But that's a great suggestion. We'll get a couple examples. We'll just bring 3 or 4 examples.
Moving on. Moving on. I wanted to pass these out. This is basically what we are. The lieutenants in the morning review the reports. Right now, they're doing more to review the reports than we've ever had to, because the rules in the patient care system. Did I not give you one? Okay. Are not there, so we have to make sure that some of these things are done, because if you're, I know some of them got tilted, I don't know why. If you're not careful, you can skip things that are needed to be in there. The rules will go back. I will tell you, we can't make the appointment to get the rules back, to talk to Zoll stuff till January 20th. So after the 20th, I'm hoping some of these things can take care of themselves. However, this is also what they are looking for on a daily basis. And if they don't find them, they're supposed to send them back to the crew to get it fixed before you go home. So the first thing they're going to do, and this is more on the lieutenant side, is we need to make sure that all the reports are done. And right now, the easiest way to do that is they look at RMS, say, oh, there was EMS reports from 90 to 101, so there's 11 of them. That means that there should be 11 of them in the PCR side, and make sure all those get done. So that's the first check that they do. So if they find one that wasn't done, their responsibility is to go find the crew, find out why it wasn't done. All right, the next one is obviously to check for a name. In the past, it has been our habit when we don't know a patient, we just leave it as a John Doe or a Jane Doe. We are changing that now because it really is important to know who that patient is. Now, we would go drop off the John Doe or Jane Doe at the Riverside and leave. The hospitals are really, really good at figuring out who these people are. So what we are basically requiring us to do as a department is follow up on that patient. Find out, the next time you go into Riverside that day, hey, did you figure out who that patient was? Get the name, bring it back, and correct the report for it. If you cannot find out from the hospital, all right?
How long do you want to leave the patient report open?
Well, what happens, it's the next morning. If you find it that day, if you can't figure out who the patient was, leave it as a Jane Doe, but it needs to be passed on to the next day. So at the very latest, I can get a hold of the hospital, and it might be 3 days later, they finally figured out who this person was. I can go in and correct it. But if it can be corrected before it comes to us, that's a lot easier. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Just make an effort to figure out who this patient was.
Not to put a point on it, but he asked the question, how long does it stay open? Because I all but got wrote up because a report was open for too long in my same shift.
You can close.
So, just so we're clear on that.
Well, you can close it and go back into it.
No, I'm saying I almost got wrote up because it was not saved to the server and completed. It was in my same shift. So just so, and there was people that still work here that almost did it. So just so
Well,
we're on the same page.
they shouldn't be looking at the report until the next morning.
It was being,
It was the next morning, but I wouldn't have had, I may or may not have had that information yet.
Well,
it wasn't surrounding that. It was a completely separate issue. But
So you're
the
just saying
point
the
is that
lieutenants are gonna do that?
follow the lieutenant.
If we're unable to find out.
If you're unable to find out, they'll either
Lieutenant is going to take care of it.
they should either make their own contact with the ER and see if they found out who it was, or let me know. Well, we don't want Jane Does and John Does in the system. Yes, every once in a while there's going to be that unidentified person that even remains in the morgue for 3 months and they don't know who it is. But we need to find out who they are to the best of our ability.
Yeah, to me, it's simple. If you can't find the name, and you're not gonna hold your report open and hold that. The hospital needs that report. It's a simple, hey, talk to the lieutenant, talk to your captain, say, hey, I can't get this name. I'm gonna follow up later on, and it's an email to Mike.
And you can complete your report on your end, and it goes to the hospital. On my end, when I open it, I can still put a name in, or I can put resident, non-resident, or I can. We can fix that, or I can reroute it back to you, or whatever. But if the hospital needs a report, complete it, send it. We'll deal with it.
That we just talked about. Ideally, it would be before it got. Did you mean you, or the lieutenants you?
Which question?
When you said that you would like that to be taken care of before it got to the lieutenants.
Well, if you can figure out who that is, you know, in 10 minutes or something, and then put it in,
Okay, so
fine.
you're saying to call the hospital after we get back, whatever, hey, did you get an ID on that patient? No, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, click, send it.
Yes.
Okay.
Call the hospital,
Here we
call
go.
registration.
Yeah, the
Well,
other one is like 30 days later.
Yeah, it's usually,
Right, but
if
if
you,
it's-
a lot of us have
yeah.
our own contacts at the hospital. You know Molly that works there, or you know so-and-so, you know, they at least can point you to the right person to talk to.
All mine
They're
are
not gonna be able
retired.
to tell you, because that's,
They've all retired.
they didn't treat that
Oh,
patient.
yeah.
But,
Or
you know,
they're dead.
or call the charge nurse. You know, we've got the number to the charge nurse, you know, or, you know, if you don't know when you leave, talk to the charge nurse before you leave, say, hey, could I have a number so I can call back here in an hour or so and see if you figure out who it was? All right. Yeah, that puts a little bit more on you as a crew, but not a whole lot. You know, and if you can't get it, tell your lieutenant, hey, I couldn't get this number. They can pass it on to me, or they can find out who it is, but eventually we have to figure out who that person is. Okay. And the quicker we do that, the better. So, all right. Obviously, date of birth, social security number. Right now, one of the things we're finding, because the rules aren't working really well, is remember, if you transport someone, put a mileage in, you know. And so if Chris sees there's no mileage in, but we already know that the mileage, it was a walk-in and the mileage from here to Riverside is 6.3, he can put 6.3 miles in, but you guys are the ones out there doing this. If you can correct the report, make sure it's in there. Vitals, and then I spoke about this earlier, if you put a monitor on someone, that needs to be downloaded. All right, 6 lead or 12 lead, and then yes, I'm gonna contact, pardon me?
You're gonna say one patches. Because unless it's something that's in the protocol, guys are gonna put the monitor on.
Okay, so.
We get that.
No,
It's just
okay.
kinda, you
Now,
gonna do anything else? Sure, throw them on the monitor.
Let us have a discussion here. I'm gonna add one other thing to this, and then we can have a discussion for the whole room, all right? This is a discussion I had yesterday, well, all right, so save that, we'll come back to it, that exact same question,
Okay.
all right? Right now, policy is gonna be put it on, download it, all right?
Yeah.
All right, so, a couple other things, transport location, I did find one the other day, yes, in the narrative it says we transported to Riverside, but in the actual column for Riverside it was missing, so put it in. Right now, your question, resident, non-resident, hopefully that gets solved. All the 3 things down there, or the 2 things, are things we talked about, where it talks about abbreviations, he talked about it in the thing. Right now, we don't have a list. I am looking at lists that we can use for Central Ohio. Not only, I pulled off JCOS, which is a national organization for medicine. It's really in depth. There's Medicare's that's really in depth. I'm actually talking to the 2, trying to get stuff from the 3 paramedic schools, Columbus, Grant, and Columbus State, on what they teach as medically accepted abbreviations in this area. Once we get that, we'll figure out and have something for our department. So that one is in process. So special situations. Murphy left.
They're outside the home.
No. All right, special situations. Because I wanted his comment on this. Lift assists. We have gotten in the habit on lift assists of just putting in the narrative, got to the house, put the patient back in their chair and left. All right? Not putting a name, not putting anything in there. Part of that was, in our old system, there were rules that said if you put the name and date and stuff, you needed all this other information. Well, the rules aren't there right now. The rules are going to be corrected to where on something like that, there'll be information you need, but maybe not as much as used to. But if we touch a patient, whether we pick them up just to put them back in a chair or not, we need a name, date of birth, and gender. All right, at minimum. Okay, because that's somebody even your treatment is just picking them up off the floor and putting them in bed. That's a treatment. You found them somewhere. All right. Where did I find the patient? On the floor. You know, we can't just go in there, throw them in the bed. Where did we find them? Murph, we're talking about lift assists. So I don't know if you got this paper back there. All right.
I believe you should do lift assist,
Well,
since they do for Columbus.
all right. Down on lift assists. I'm gonna repeat myself because you're out of the room.
Hey, you might want to tell me I'm video too.
And we're being recorded. Lift assist, name, date of birth, and gender. All right. Where we found the patient, on the floor, in the
Come
chair,
back to the council office, please.
whatever. How they got there. How they got there. You know, did they slip out of the wheelchair? Did they fall off the commode? And then assessment noting that the patient wasn't injured. You know, something in the report that says patient denied any injuries. You know, patient found fetal position on the left side, patient denies left hip pain, or something that shows that that patient was not injured and they are truly just a lift assist. Just putting in the narrative that we threw him back in bed is not good enough. Okay, we need to know more about this. No complaints, so that's a lift assist. So refusal of care. Again, a lot of this was, he talked about it earlier, but a refusal of care, refusal on treated and released, things we need in the report: name, date of birth, and gender, patient assessment including chief complaint, and the best that the patient allows. If the patient doesn't want to tell you anything, write that in the document. You know, that the patient refused any care, or refused to have us touch him, etc. And you know, he was arguing with the police, and police wanted us to check him out. The patient wouldn't let us. You know, things like that. Those criteria of not the conclusions, but the circumstances that you find. And then, if treated and released, the reasons of release and instructions given to the patient. Patient was, you know, this and this and this we found. Patient feels it's better to see their private physician in the morning. Crews agree, and you know, go on from there. If refusal of care, documentation of the patient understands the condition and was advised of medical consequences. Description of their capacity to make decisions, and it is department policy. I know Mike said that he didn't really care about the refusal signature. It is department policy. It is also national standard of care that we get a signature on a refusal, if the patient will give you one. We are also asking that if you can get it, a witness to that. If that second witness is another member of the crew, that's another member of the crew. And then the other thing is follow-up needed by any follow-up needed by the department. If you find hoarding house or a patient that needs social services or something, if you find that when you're out there, make sure that that information gets back to us. Pass it on to your lieutenant, and at that point, I should get an email about that, and a copy of that email should go to Chief Balo too.
And I'm getting a copy of that email. Why?
Just because I wanted you to get one.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to do anything with it, but because those are possibly those are the ones that we need further investigation.
Might take a little bit more higher level.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way you know about it instead of when I walk in your office and go, that patient we've had for 15 times. You go, huh?
Okay.
So. Now, the only other thing that I need to discuss is, and this kind of comes up to doing two things again. If you are on Engine 101 or Ladder 101, and you take a run into Columbus as a EMS vehicle, let's say, and where I'm going to use your guys' run, the one where
The dead,
no,
dead again?
the dead again. It was 2 units run.
That was Joe.
That was
That
Joe
was
Graham.
Joe. Okay,
Was.
so
He's got experience with
that's
that.
this is kind of where this came from, but it also brought out a lot of good questions. They went as an engine with an EMS supervisor on a DOA because that's what Columbus is doing. So the engine is basically the EMS vehicle. They pronounced death. What should they do? The question.
Come back, please.
Just tell him this is important. The question was, do they need an EMS report? The answer is yes. All right. They provided an assessment. Yes, their assessment was the patient was dead. All right. They documented that we found this patient dead, and yes, Columbus EMS supervisor has his own report that he's going to fill in, but they provided that initial assessment. They pronounced death. So yes, there was EMS report required. Now, the other thing where that we feel is required, they send Engine 101 with Medic 6 on a possible heart. Engine 101 gets there, Medic 6 for some reason is delayed. Engine 101 goes ahead, puts their monitor on them, starts an IV, and does patient care. Medic 6 shows up, you transfer that care to Medic 6 and goes on. All right? That run needs one of our EMS reports because we provided care. Now, the question comes up is, well, Columbus has an EMS report going in, but do we know that they're going to write in their report that we provided all that care, or are they just going to say previous care provided by Engine 101 and not document it? All right? If we did specific care, we need to document that on one of our own runs. Now the question came up, well, do I have to do a fire report and an EMS report? Right now, yes. We're looking into maybe that can be changed at some point. But right now, the way our system is set up, yes, you have to do 2 reports. Now, going to Zach's comment about earlier, and this is a discussion I had with someone yesterday. They came up with, you know what? Honestly, am I going to even say I did anything then? That way I only have to make a fire report. Well, first of all, to me, that's a really bad attitude. All right?
Don't let me in with that. That's not what I said.
I know, and I know that's not what you said, but that's
I'm out.
No, I know that's not what you said. But it's again, to me that's a bad attitude, and that's not the way we should be thinking. All right? What we should be thinking is, yeah, I gave patient care. I'm documenting the care I gave. Is it an inconvenience that I have to do 2 reports? For right now, yes. Hopefully we can check it out. He said it under his breath, yes, it's our job. All right. On those type of on those runs, we need to do our own EMS report. Now, different situation. We go with our own medic, obviously, get there, or Engine 101 goes with Medic 6, you both get there at the same time, and all you did was package patient assist packaging patient for travel.
Provided manpower and assist.
Provided manpower and assist, that's a fire report. There's no EMS report. It's the one where we do specific treatment and then transfer care, because that ends up being a treated and transferred care run. All right?
So dispatch, sorry.
No, you go ahead first.